Hey, Olivia, I am so glad that you are going to sit down with me today. I'm so excited for our conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me, Dr. Moira.
Absolutely. So I know that you have really been focused on helping. Well, I guess tell me a little bit about your background because I know that you used to work full-time corporate type stuff and you were kind of getting burned out, right?
I wasn't in corporate. I initially started businesses in
That's what it
college.
was. Okay.
Yeah, I started a couple of businesses in college and
Hmm.
I still finished college, but I was just kind of like, you know, is this degree really going to take me where I want to go? I was studying science and I was like, I'm good at it, but it's not really going to make me the money I want. It feels really boring.
Hmm.
So what can I do? I kind of knew long term I wanted to start a business. So I
Okay.
started a couple in college. I was like, why not just do it now? So I started an e-commerce business and I started a Facebook ads agency. And
Mm.
then I was trying to get clients for the ads agency. I bought a course online and they taught cold calling, like finding ways to get
Oh.
like this and doing cold calling and stuff. So there I was, little old, 19-year-old me, cold calling clients in between lectures to
Oh my gosh.
try and get clients. And it wasn't going the best. It was like my first interaction with sales, and I'm naturally more like introverted, so
Hmm.
it was very uncomfortable for me.
Okay.
But I had a friend who kind of got me into the whole like online marketing, like branding
Hmm.
world, um, who was really good at sales. So I asked him, I was like, what you sales? Because I need to know. And it turned out it was this guy who lived out in California, in San Diego, and he was a sales rep for over a decade. He did high ticket sales and then he built sales teams like for some pretty big names in the industry.
Hmm.
And he had just started a sales training and recruiting business. So I bought his course and then I used my student loan to pay him for some one-on-one coaching.
Oh,
I ended up
wow.
getting good at sales. Yeah, I ended up actually getting good at sales now, so that was good. And then he asked me to come work with him. And I was like, okay, like this is a good opportunity for me to learn from someone that knows a lot more than me. And he was like a very big like connections person, like a
Hmm.
person that had a lot of connections.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is gonna be a good opportunity, like I'll do it. So I was still in uni at the time, and so I would do my university work in the day, and then I would like close deals for his business in the evening. And his company, it was still small. It was only me and like a couple other people and him. And it just kind of got to the point where it was just really clear that he was great at sales, but he was not good at anything that came after the sale. Like
Ooh.
yeah, he was great at like training people in sales and like that was a big part of his fulfillment, but
Mhm.
he wasn't good at any of the operational aspect. He wasn't good at like coordinating recruiting reps and placing them with business owners. Like he really struggled in a lot of the, operational strategic
Mhm.
skills to grow the business. And so I just kind of had a mind that works that way. Like I'm very systems oriented, so I
Mhm.
just like taught myself through necessity and
Mhm.
helped him scale his business. I moved into operationals role with him, helped him double his business in a year, and I became his COO. And then I went to the States to work with him for a few months
Mhm.
in San Diego. Then he moved to Miami and I worked there for a bit. And then throughout that time, I was meeting a bunch of other entrepreneurs. And I
Mhm.
realized like this problem, like this deficiency in operations was not localized to him.
No.
Actually, all of the like most of the entrepreneurs I met really, because they're very visionary and they lack this like operational side.
Mhm.
So I decided to start my own business again, did my operations consulting, fractional COO stuff,
Mhm.
and yeah, and I've been doing that for almost 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
so
And I think you're right. You brought up a really interesting point that entrepreneurs tend to be very visionary. But then when we try and think about all the stuff that has to support that vision, it kind of falls into pieces. So when you're kind of going into organizations, whether or helping entrepreneurs, whether they're small or big, new or established, as that fractional COO or integrator, kind of what are the biggest mistakes that you're seeing that you wish people just knew about?
Yeah. I mean, probably the biggest one with everyone is just like lack of KPIs and tracking, like lack of tracking their data. That's a huge one. Like almost every business I go into, they're either not tracking or they're not tracking the right things. And they're not even like they'll track a few things and then they're not looking at it consistently. So it's basically just a waste of time to even track what they're tracking. They're not actually using it to make informed decisions. And like so many organizations don't understand that like to have a real business, it's like you have to think about each section of your business is like a different quadrant or like it's a system within a system. Like your business is one big system and it's composed of miniature systems. Like your sales system is the process of taking a lead and then converting them into a paying client. Like that's a whole system. Your marketing system is taking someone from a stranger and turning them into someone that has like expressed interest in what you do, right? And then your fulfillment service is taking that paying customer into someone that's like gotten results in your process, right? So these are systems within your system. And people don't look at it that way and reverse engineer like the actions in the process in order to like actually get a result. Like if you want 10 clients a month, you can reverse engineer the steps in your marketing and sales process.
To get to how many strangers do you need to interact with in order to get to the actual 10 clients that you're then serving and getting those results with?
Exactly. And so many people just like either they don't take the time to do it, they don't do it properly, they don't do it at all. And it becomes really hard for them to ever develop something scalable because if you don't know like your inputs and outputs, it's like how can you ever hire someone to do that, to take over that function in your business because you don't know like what levers they need to push to get the result. You don't even know like if they're getting the result. Most of the time what happens is like a business owner is just doing everything themselves and they almost don't even know how they're holding it together. Like they have unconscious competency. I don't know if you've heard of it, like the four levels.
Yeah.
Like most business owners have unconscious competency, meaning they're good at it, but they don't know what it is that's making them good at it, right? So they can't transfer it to someone else.
Nor can they actually make it scalable, like you said, because they don't know what pieces are doing the heavy lifting for them so that they can actually either hand those off or find a more efficient way to do them so that they are scalable, whatever that looks like. But I think you're right. A lot of times, especially new entrepreneurs, you get in, you just look for something that works, but you don't necessarily, when you stumble on it, a lot of times you don't know why.
Yeah, exactly. And like it's okay to not know why before you do something, but once you've figured it out, like take the time to reverse engineer what you did. Take the time to see like why it's actually working and what are the component parts that make up the whole, because then you can teach someone else to do it and you also know what success looks like in that function, you know, because it's like a lot of people they'll close, let's say a business owner is closing like 10 clients a month for their company. And then they bring on a sales rep and they're like, the sales rep is only closing 2. Like, I don't know what's going on. But they didn't even really set that clear target of them to close 10. And they didn't give them the whole process of how they're even able to close 10. So it's just like, well, of course they're not going to, you know.
So how do you, kind of thinking about that, do you have any high level steps that you can take to think about reverse engineering that success you've had so that you can break it down and be able to hand that task off to someone else, whether you're hiring a VA, a virtual assistant, or an integrator, or someone who can do this stuff? You still have to be able to reverse engineer it. So do you have any kind of high level steps or things to think about to get there a little bit easier?
Yeah, and I will say it's like, you know, depending on who you hire out of like the list you just gave, you don't have to do as much reverse engineering, right? Like people hire me because they're paying for my expertise, so I can basically like do that for them. Do you know what I mean? Like you either like in the entrepreneur game, there's like 2 ways, right? You either have to pay someone that knows a lot more than you and trust them to figure out the problems for you, or you have to figure out how to solve the problems yourself and pay someone who is more just going to implement what you tell them to do.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you're going to implement someone to do what you tell them to do, then you need to be good at breaking things down, creating SOPs, understanding like why your process works, right? And so, I mean, it really depends on the system, like how you're going to break it down. But like in a simple way is like, look at the result you're getting. So like look at the result you're getting and start with that. And then list all of the actions it took you to get there. Literally like every single step it took you to get there. But then not just like the step, but then they're like the overview steps of an SOP, if you'd like. But then you need to go into how you actually did that step and the thinking behind what you were doing as you were doing it that got someone the result, right? It's all right saying, oh, you know, have 100 sales calls and you'll close 20. Well, no, because someone could take 100 sales calls and close 50, couldn't they? Someone could take 100 and close 1. It's about what you're doing on the calls and how you're thinking about what you're doing. So the reason like a lot of people fail with delegating successfully is because they don't, well, high level tasks, they're not teaching people how to think. So that's another part of the system.
So kind of what stands out there is really you have to get in touch with what your thinking process is. It's not just the things that we can tangibly say, okay, so at this point in the conversation, I say this. And here's a script for that. It's not about that. It's also about thinking about why did you do it here and in this way, because that's where that magic happens, is when you can understand the thinking behind it.
Exactly. And like with the sales call example, it's like you don't really even want to give people a script because then you'll have a bunch of robots that will probably not perform as well as you. You know, it's like, how can you get someone to perform like you perform? You have to extract what makes you so good. And so that's recording your own sales calls, like watching back your own sales calls and dissecting what is making you actually good. You know, reviewing, if you get into some new sales reps, like reviewing that sales call with sales reps around you and then pausing it and being like, what did I just do there? Like, what can you pick out that I did there, and getting them to see it. Yeah.
I would say even, and maybe you might disagree with me, recording the calls that maybe don't end in a sale as well, and being able to look back at those.
100%. I say to everyone, record all of your calls. Not even just sales calls, like record all of your calls, like record team meetings, record calls with clients. They're all going to be used for future training. If you don't envision doing everything in your business forever, then record everything, because it's all going to be future training. So.
And if you want a sustainable business, then you are not going to be doing everything in your business forevermore.
Exactly. I should hope so.
At the end of the day, you really can't, because a lot of times we get into entrepreneurship to have some of that freedom, to have some of that flexibility. And if you have to do every single little thing in your business, then
right. And I think that's another mistake, really, that I see. Is like there's a lot of people, you know, saying, oh, I'm a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur. And when you look in their business, they're actually just like a glorified freelancer, because they're still doing everything themselves. No, and that's maybe like a hard way of putting it, but it's like, you know, I know it can be scary, like making your first hires, and like when you're doing everything, you get to be in control and you know that everything's up to you, you know, and that can be like a very enticing place to stay. And especially because you've got certain profit margins and you're like, oh, maybe I'll just stay here forever. But if you stay there forever, like you get sick, business is gone. You want to go on holiday, business is going to have to stop, you know? So it's like there's nothing wrong with being a freelancer and like staying there if that's what you want to do. You just have to think very seriously about what do you actually want? Do you want a business that is an asset that works without you? Like that's really what a business should be. It's an asset that produces money whether you work or not. It brings you cash whether you work or not. That is the goal to me of when an entrepreneur gets into business, of what you should be producing. If you don't want that, then be okay with, you know, being a freelancer. in many ways, it's easier to be a freelancer.
So talk
they
to
both
me about, so you saying that brings up something for me. The business produces money whether you're working or not. And so I know that I've got coaches who are probably listening to this saying, but if I'm not coaching, then I'm not making money. So am I just a freelancer? And they're kind of thinking about the different, thinking about business and going, well, does that mean this is never scalable? And I would argue the answer is no, you actually can be a coach and you don't always have to be there with coaching sessions to make money and to have your business be profitable. But I'm curious to know kind of what you think about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's many things you can do to make a coaching business scalable. Like, first of all, you can hire coaches and train them in your methodologies, have them do the coaching for you. Second is, you can do group programs and stuff like that. And like, if it's you doing the coaching, like, yeah, you're still involved, but you have to make the distinction, right? There's a choice. It's like, are you trying to become just like the person that oversees the business, or are you trying to be the CEO that still has an active role in some segments of the business, right? And so, I mean, a CEO in like a typical business is not going to be involved in any of the fulfillment, like a coach is involved in the fulfillment. But if you want to be a coach and be involved in some level, then you just understand, okay, that's the way your business is running. It may not be like as scalable and independent of you as a business can go, but that's the choice you make if that's what you want to do. So, but you can hire, I know coaches that have trained coaches in their methodologies and have them on their team, and they're completely removed from all the fulfillment and they are very successful businesses. So that's one way to go about it. Another way, I'm sure you guys all know, is just like having group programs. You can do courses which don't have any of your involvement. I think the coaching model is an interesting one because I see people that have like successfully removed themselves from all of it. Like, they don't even make the content anymore. They're not in the fulfillment. They don't do anything. But then I see coaches that would never let anyone make their content, would never let anyone do the coaching course for them. And so it's like, well, you're stuck then. I mean, that's, if you enjoy it and you love it, then I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. Do it.
Yeah.
That's what makes you happy. Do it. At the end of the day, I think we have to, like, business, at the end of the day, you should have got into it because it makes you happy. Like, it's fun, right? So so just because I'm sat here saying, well, technically it's not a real business if you're not like fully out of the day-to-day, don't listen to me if that's not what makes you happy.
Yes. That's such a great point, is that everyone's business is different. And that your hands-onness, I know that's not a word, but how hands-on you are is really your decision. That you can create a business, whether it's coaching, service-based, product-based, where you are completely hands-on or not hands-on at all. And the key is to have, even if you are staying hands-on, to have processes in place, I think, and systems in place, like you're talking about, and understanding how things work, so that whatever framework you choose for your business, it is successful and profitable.
Exactly. And like, your first business doesn't have to be your last one, like, if this business, you've built it based off skills you have, your personality, like you're a coach, whatever, and this becomes like, brings you a lot of cash flow, now you might decide to put that money into a different business that can produce you passive income that you don't really have any active role in the day-to-day, right? You might decide to acquire another business. You might decide to do a bunch of different things with your cash. So just because you're more active in one doesn't mean that you won't have like passive income opportunities in other areas.
Absolutely. So I'm curious to know, because a lot of people, I think, come to entrepreneurship. Your path was a little bit different, but I know that a lot of people come to entrepreneurship from a more traditional 9-to-5 kind of job. And with your experience, I'd love to know how you can set those tasks, set those things in place kind of from day one, so that you're leading toward profitability, but you're not leading toward overwhelm and hustle and burnout. And I know that you're going into organizations, you are working for clients as that fractional COO. You have to be paying attention to your own levels of energy and time. How do you manage that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, there's a lot of things to go out there, but in terms of like, so first of all, going from a 9 to 5 to being in a business, it's like you're going from this very structured, almost regimented thing to all of a sudden having all of the freedom, getting to make all of the decisions, deciding when you do things. And suddenly, every hour of the day feels like an hour that you could be working because now it's all up to you. So let's not fall into that trap. I've been there. It feels, especially when you work from home, every hour of the day feels like an hour that you could and even should be working, but it's a trap. It's a trap. So I'd say the first thing to do is get clear on how many hours a day you're choosing to work and what times of the day you're choosing to work, and having a hard stop. I think having a hard stop is really useful. Some people disagree with me on that and they're like, oh, well, if it's not done, like you have to keep going. And I'm like, well, you guys, it's the Pareto principle, is that the one where or Parkinson's law, basically, like
Parkinson's
law, yeah, the time will expand to the amount of time
whatever's available.
Exactly. And like
that task expands. If it could take 1 hour, it could take 10. If you have 10 hours, it will take 10 hours.
Exactly. And I see it happen all the time, like with myself. Like I kind of developed like a thing that I'm optimizing for. Like I'm optimizing to work only like 4 hours a day, right? And like right now I'm somewhere between, it depends. It's like between 3 and 6, depending on the day, right? So I think as well as like deciding that, but I never really ever work more than 6 hours. And so that's kind of like my limit. And I like to have 2 blocks so I'll work from usually like 7 to 10 a.m. and then I'll have a 1 hour break, and then 10 till 2. And then usually I'm done because I prefer to get my stuff done in the morning. Like that's how I like to operate. So I encourage you to come up with a kind of schedule like that. And I know you're not going to follow it religiously every day because some life happens. And one day you might want to go to the gym in the morning and then do stuff in the afternoon, or you might want to go for breakfast that morning. Like, have fun in your schedule. Like, I recommend everyone has fun and flexibility in their schedule, but kind of be clear on when do you like to work the best, how much time are you going to spend towards working, and then be like, have a hard stop with yourself. And if you struggle to have a hard stop, book something at the end of the day that you have to go to, so you can't like tempt yourself, right? Because it's very easy to end up being like 7 or 8 p.m. and you're still working, and then eventually you become a zombie. So
which is not what you signed up for when you decided to be an entrepreneur.
Exactly. But people, like new entrepreneurs, live in this like weird paradigm of like, oh, I'll like hustle and grind now so I can be free later. And it seems like that's actually true. Like people think it's true, they think it makes logical sense. But from everyone that I've observed, and I observe it in myself, it's like you don't hustle and grind and one day you're magically free. Like if you want freedom, you have to build it into your schedule and build it into your day from day one.
Yes.
Right? Because if you decide you're going to go down this hustle route and then in a few years you're making good money, what's going to happen is you've trained your brain to associate this reward of money with your hustle. And so if you stop, you're going to feel like you're not going to make any money. Also, your nervous system has just become used to this hustle and grinding. And so if you stop, you're going to feel pretty bad as well. And you're going to associate that with, oh, I just love hustling. No, it's just that you trained your body to be comfortable in one type of environment. And now your body is shocked and it's taking you a while to adjust, and you're not even giving it long to adjust. So that's a whole other thing. But the second thing is, so now you've like picked a schedule, decide what days of the week you're going to do certain tasks. So like Monday, Wednesday, Friday is when I take calls, and I take them between a certain window of the day, not just all day I can have a call, right? So have days when you have call days and non-call days. If you open yourself up to taking calls every day, you will never get anything meaningful done. So, and then, you know, decide what type of things you're going to do on the other days. Like I have 2 days where I'm specifically only focusing on my business. I have days where I'm specifically focusing on my client stuff, right? Things like that. So get a routine with that. And then in terms of like the basics of setting up your business, I always recommend everyone starts out with, I don't even know what I would call it, kind of like a business wiki, I think is what people are calling it these days. But if you guys have heard of Notion.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I built mine in Notion, but basically having your home space for your company and have a page that's like sales, one that's marketing, operations, fulfillment, finances. And then inside each of them is like a whole, you know, whole stuff going on for each department of your business. And then I recommend inside each folder for each function, there is like a SOPs database. And this is where you put all the standard processes relating to that department. And so you want to be like consistently adding to this all the time as you're working your business. So as you do something and you know, like, that's how I'm going to keep doing this, and that was like successful, put it in there. Put it in there, right? Because I've been doing that since day one. And then so when I go to hire someone, it's not this big overwhelming thing because I already have my things built out. And like if I'm having a brain fog day and like forgetting how I even do something, I just go to my SOP and I just follow my SOP. Like it makes your life way easier as well. And my team loves it. And it makes everything so much easier. So I recommend that. And then using something for task management and like using it like your Bible almost, like, because a lot of people, they'll use something like ClickUp or, you know, Monday or whatever. I personally use ClickUp, but they never get into it because they never like really commit to it and understand how it works. And so it ends up being like once every 60 days when they have some motivation, they dump a load of tasks into there and then they never use it again, and then gets in this cycle. So you just have to open it whenever you use
whenever you sit down to do business.
Exactly. Whenever you sit down to do business, open the task you're working on, track your time. I think that's very valuable. And at the end of the month, you can see where you spent your time. Yeah. And also planning your day the night before. Like, I cannot tell you how many CEOs of big companies I talk to, and they're like, I'm struggling with my time management, Olivia, like it's really not good. And I'm like, well, are you planning your day the night before? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, there you go.
Do that.
That's probably the biggest thing. Like if you wake up in the morning and then you're trying to scramble of what should I do today, you're already like on the back foot. You're already behind. And I hate saying like, oh, you're behind, but that's the truth, because as well, you're now relying on how this day is going to go based on the emotions you woke up with that morning. And that's a really bad way to determine how your day is going to go, because you probably woke up that morning not wanting to do much.
And you woke up maybe even a little panicked because you don't know what you're supposed to be working on or what needs to be done to take the next step. And so that bleeds into everything. When we have that panic or that anxiety, it shows up in every conversation we have, every email we write, every piece of content we try to create. It just bleeds through it all.
It does. So, you know, on every Sunday, I kind of debrief on the previous week, and I, you know, plan everything I'm going to do in this upcoming week. And then I'll block out time in my Google Calendar, so I roughly know like what I'm doing each day. But still, the night before each day, I open up my journal and I write like every hour. I'll be like 6 a.m., 7 a.m., blah, 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 all the way through to like 10 p.m. And I'll write what I'm doing in every like 30-minute period, you know? And the fact, just like writing it down on paper makes it go into your brain more. And like ever since I do that, like I end up getting so much done in little time because I know exactly like where I'm going next. Like I
You
know exactly.
also, yep. You also are tracking your time. So you know, maybe the first time you do a task, you don't know how long it takes. But
Yeah.
the eighth time, man, it's pretty routine. You know exactly what to put in that journal. You know it's going to take you an hour. So you've got to block 2 of those 30-minute segments for that task. You just know. And so I hear a lot of times people saying, but I plan like that and it doesn't work out. Well, it's maybe won't at first. You got to build in some buffer space in there.
Right, exactly. That's the thing. I did struggle with that for a while. Like things aren't going to go to plan the first time, and definitely have buffer stuff. Like in the beginning, have, you know, 15 to 30 minutes like either side of a task. But once you track your time and you know like how long it actually takes you to do something, and also the more you do it, the faster you will get at it, then you'll know how long it's going to take you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So everything from, we've talked about a lot today. Wow. One of the things that I heard come up several times is really making sure that you have your systems in place, that you've got the sales system, you've got the fulfillment, the marketing, the finances. And I think, I want to say this one more time, finances, pay attention to your finances. Don't just hand out your credit card. Know exactly what you're spending, know what you're bringing in, know the finances behind your business, because that is going to be key to seeing that growth, is really getting in touch with it. It's hard though. I think I don't know about you, but I hear from a lot of people, oh, I really should go take a look at my finances.
Yeah. It's almost shocking to me. And like people get so afraid of taxes. And I'm like,
Mhm.
you're only taxed on your profits, right? So like if you're so afraid of your taxes, it means you've been like spending your profits on things that aren't really business expenses.
Yep.
And so you're afraid that you're gonna get, taxed on money that you no longer have. And I'm like, how, you only get in that kind of situation if you're completely ignoring your finances. So it's every month. I mean, I know everything that's going in and out of my bank account. Like I have, I do bookkeeping, I have spreadsheets, I know like where everything is going. But like before I make a purchase, I'm thinking, okay, like what am I hoping to get out of this? Like, how is this helping the business? I think as well in the coaching industry, it's very easy to get caught up in other people's fancy marketing and feel like you need something that you actually already had or like don't actually need at all. And then before you know it, you've blown thousands of dollars and now you're at zero profit for the month because you thought you needed this thing. And it's like most of the time you don't need the thing. Like most of the time you actually just need to be more consistent in what you're already doing.
Absolutely.
People don't want to hear
Especially as you're
that.
getting started. So as we get ready to kind of close up the conversation, I wonder if you'd share, I know you mentioned something to me that was really important before we hit record. As people are looking for clients and trying to find some more consistent income, what has really worked for you?
Yeah, so what I do now, operations and fractional COO service providing stuff,
Yeah.
Upwork has been fantastic for me. And I'm someone that has, I built a huge brand on Instagram. I had my account hacked and then I rebuilt it. Yeah, it was a nightmare, but I had to restart from zero. But despite that, and regardless, it's like I had a brand on Facebook, TikTok. I still have those things. But it's like I don't really use them anymore because for the clients I'm looking to go after, it's like high level business owners, right? I need to be talking with decision makers, CEOs that they're not always available on social media. Like it's hard to get to them. Whereas like Upwork, anyone that's posting a job on Upwork, they know they have a problem, they're problem aware, and they're ready to get a solution because they're already like posting about it. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs get put off Upwork because they're like, oh, it's for freelancers, like I'm not a freelancer or like whatever. And I'm like, you're looking at it in the wrong way, really, because Upwork is just full of businesses really that need help with a specific thing that are ready to pay you now and just don't know where else to go. They don't know where else to go. And so I actually am making a course on this right now because I've been like really, yeah, it's almost done because I've been able to generate so much off of Upwork. And like people don't even pay me on Upwork, which is I think another thing that puts people off is like Upwork takes 10%, and so like that's actually can be a sizable amount. But when you have your own sales process and you know, like I think as well, like people think they're interviewing for things on Upwork and whatever, and it's like, no, I'm going in there with a sales mentality. Like I'm looking at this as this is my sales process. These people are, you know, sharing they have concerns with things that I help for. They may not have articulated it in a way that 100% fits my offer, but I know that these are the things that they're looking for help with. And so if we get on a call, I know it's gonna be a fit for what I do. And so then I just, you know, we go from there. I send them a Stripe invoice, they become a client. You know, it's all just about taking the lead. So I think if you're a service provider, if you're, you know, if you do copywriting, anything to do with marketing, anything to do with sales, you know, social media management, don't know if I already said that, any ad stuff, like even coaching, like live coaching, I see stuff like that, but systems operation stuff, like even more stuff that I just can't even think, like accounting, financial services, all of that kind of stuff, financial coaching. There's such a huge market for that on Upwork that I think is being massively overlooked because it's like the sales cycle is just so much faster. Like it can take you weeks or months on Facebook and Instagram to take someone that's not even really interested in what you do. Like they may be interested, they don't even know they have the problem. It can take months for that person to become a client. You go on Upwork, it can take 2 days.
Because they already know, like you said, they know they have a problem. They know they want some help and they know it's going to cost them money and they're prepared to spend some money to get the solution, whatever it is you're offering. And so you're right. They are primed and ready to go because they're at that point where something has to change and they know it. And that's when they say yes.
Exactly.
That's brilliant. So definitely check out Upwork. That is a great tip. And Olivia, how can my listeners get in touch with you and learn more from you and about you? How can they do that?
Yeah, so the best way is probably going to be through an experience. So I will send you a link that you can put in the description, and that's gonna, there'll be two. There'll be one for operation stuff and one for kind of Upwork stuff, and you can go in and watch a video, and it's going to, for the operation stuff, it's going to give you a little bit more clarity around how to find the gaps and holes in your own business and what you can do about that. And so you'll just put it in your email and that will give you all that information. And then for Upwork, I'm going to go through a training of how to create your profile. So leads will start coming to you. So they're going to be the two best ways to get.
Wonderful. I will definitely put those links in the description so that everyone can access them and just click go. And I just want to thank you so much for spending time with me today, Olivia, and sharing your wisdom around systems and processes and really thinking a little bit differently about business in a way of creating that schedule right from day one and making it a little bit lighter, that it doesn't have to be heavy to be an entrepreneur, to be a business owner, and that there are lots of ways we can build businesses. So thank you
for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.